Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. So today, after several months of waiting, we finally have the third volume of the Bloodborne comic. So this volume is called A Song of Crows, and as always, it's being released by Titancomics. And as with the last volume, it was written by L.S. Kott with art by Piotr Kowalski and colors by Brad Simpson. And this volume comes with the interesting premise of giving some backstory to the character Eileen the Crow. And it starts out, in my opinion, pretty strong. It begins with her walking around, losing memory, and having the notion that knowledge, even knowledge of yourself, is sometimes beyond your own scope of understanding. In fact, I think it started so strong that I would really like to read the first couple pages to you. And it starts out with Eileen going through a gate. When is this? When is this? When is... No matter how hard you try to understand, when, you'll never know the whole story. Not your own, not anyone else's. At certain points, you may be convinced you do. You may even choose to convince yourself that you've found the right angle from which to see the totality of the world, of the universe. You'd be wrong. For time is the deepest grave of all. I thought that was awesome, and it really goes with the whole cosmic horror Lovecraftian type of themes that you find really frequently in the book. Despite having such a strong start, in my opinion, the narrative in this comic goes down kind of drastically from there. When she's through the gate, like that illustration that I just showed you, it actually illustrates her burying these bodies that, maybe we can presume either fell to the sickness or perhaps she put them in their graves herself. And although that's very interesting and such a dark and cool premise and illustrated so well throughout, the whole purpose of the crow hunters in Bloodborne is to do sky burials. They found that the Yharnam burials, having coffins going inside the ground, was obscene. So I just think that missing such an important detail in Eileen's life was such a missed opportunity for this narrative. So I will read verbatim from the crow feather set in Bloodborne, which is what Eileen wears and provides a lot of good backstory for her. Wood-carved mask / attire of Eileen the Crow, Hunter of Hunters. The beak contains incense to mask scents of blood and beast. Hunters of Hunters dress as crows to suggest sky burial. The first Hunter of Hunters came from a foreign land and gave the dead a virtuous native funeral ritual rather than impose a blasphemous Yharnam burial service upon them, with hope that former compatriots might be returned to the skies and find rest in the hunter's dream. We see in Yharnam pretty frequently that some of the bodies are put up on sticks and kind of exposed to the elements, which, long story short, is kind of the loose definition of a sky burial. So her putting them into the ground just misses a really key part of her lore. And although the book gives some color to what Eileen's been through and the land that she comes from, I think that they missed a couple other details as well. The intro throughout the entire story sort of suggests that Eileen has some deep mental illnesses, which runs with the theme in Bloodborne that the more you know about the hunt and the more you know about what's going on in Yharnam, the madder that you are. However, with Eileen, she's one of the few characters in the game who actually really does stay sharp until the end. She doesn't go mad unless a very specific condition is met. If you don't help her kill Henrique, but you started her storyline, she will go mad, but not in the way that she was in the book. In the book, she was wandering around, confused, not really knowing reality from her memories. And although the Red Moon is out in the story, so this could be the start of her downward spiral, the ending kind of doesn't mesh well with the game at all, although I won't spoil anything. Moving on, the way the story is told is in a stream of consciousness sort of way, which is really interesting in premise, and I think that it worked really well for that one opening scene. However, by the middle, it got so trippy and odd that I didn't really feel like it even meshed well with the very well-placed way that characters go mad in the game. Let me show you this one scene. And from this point forward, there will be some light spoilers. I'm gonna try not to spoil the end for you, but the middle of it I'm about to show. So there's this one part where she meets Rom in the lake, and she takes off her mask to show another mask underneath. And I genuinely hope that this is metaphorical in some way, although I really think it was an odd choice. The best entertainment value that I can get from that scene is kind of like that meme where the person has a mask on and someone says, "Let me speak to your manager." And then they take off their mask and they say, "I am the manager." All in all, the narrative took some odd paths and made some strange narrative choices. I think that this would have worked if it was written more like the second volume, where it is sort of a Bloodborne universe story with characters that we don't necessarily know yet. With this, I wish that it was a different hunter or a different crow hunter and not Eileen, because I really don't feel like this comic book story intertwines very well with the Eileen of the game at all. However, with the critiques being out of the way, I have to commend the artists yet again on just making a visually stunning book. So throughout, there is comic art by Piotr Kowalski and Brad Simpson as always, and they always do a stunning job. I think that if you want this book purely as a collection piece, it's awesome. Definitely get it for that. I think that that's where you're gonna have the most value, as something to just enjoy visually. I think that the way that the story was told, I disagree with. However, the way that it was visualized was awesome. If you take this away from the game and don't really care to learn the story from that, then you can at least enjoy a really visual feast of like just strange gothic beauty. Also, I have to give a major shout out to some of the guest artists that contributed to this book. Their art is absolutely beautiful, and I apologize if I get any of these names wrong. My handwriting is very strange sometimes. The guest art is by Yoshioka, Ivan Shavrin, and Damien Worm, and they're all absolutely phenomenal. I'm not going to show it just to make sure that if you do want to buy the book, you should, just to enjoy the art. Overall thoughts is that I have mixed feelings about this. Again, if you want this as a collector's item that you're going to use to appreciate the art, absolutely get it. It is so worth it just for that. However, in terms of the story, it's interesting, but it doesn't fit Eileen as we know her. She's a woman of unbreakable resolve, even until the end. To elaborate a little bit on that, if you encounter her in the game and you have the condition where she does go mad, she's not confused like the way that she is in the comic. Instead, she's resolute to end the hunt.
Few hunters can resist the intoxication of the hunt. Lucky. Just the same as all the rest. The hunters must die. The nightmare must end. Only I can stop this madness.
The beasts cannot be stopped! What good hunters now? Your blood is mine. A hunter's blood for me! Your punishment is death! Death to hunters! Enough of this terrible dream! You monsters. All hunters must die.
I will take a moment to suggest some things that I think would make this comic considerably better. If you are going to tell the story of Eileen, I think that a series of stories of her past with the other old hunters like Gascoigne, Henrique, or backstory of her with the Bloody Crow of Canehurst would have been awesome. I think that those are some of the unanswered questions that we have in the game that we have to fill in our own heads. So if you want to expand upon that by making a book or a comic, that would be something that at least someone like me who is a huge fan of the game would like to read. This is very much on par with the way that I felt about Volume 1, where I really didn't like the story. It had some odd choices, but the book is just a visual feast. The art is absolutely stunning. So if you wanted it just as a collector's piece, it's awesome, but again, it's not great if you are unfamiliar to the game and you want to enjoy some of the story. The story is very different on these, and I feel that they weren't quite as well researched as they could have been by just looking up some basic items, some basic lore on her, if that makes sense. All in all, I think that the most successful way that these comics have been written has been the way that number 2 was written, as a Bloodborne universe story with characters that we don't know that were very interesting and seemed to fit very well in the universe itself. In terms of Volume 3 and Eileen's story, I feel that it fell flat because it didn't do quite enough research to do this character justice. So what do you guys think? I'd be really interested to know your thoughts, whether or not you've read the comic book series yet. Thank you all so much for watching, and have a great day. Editing me is gonna hate me, but I'm in a hurry. Gonna go see Daddy movie. With art by Piotr Kowalski and I can't communicate, I don't know. You know, let me go into my phone and find the proof. Don't want to spread information without having some kind of proof. Let me show you. Oh my god. Where is it? Okay. Okay, there it is. Let me show you this. Now, I genuinely hope that's metaphorical for something. Yeah. Even though she's trying to shed this one mask, you know, another mask is underneath, I guess. Yeah. Okay, that was dorky. However, with those critiques out of the way, I have to commend, oh my god. Well, I have to not commend my HDMI cord for not working. So what do you think? I'm interesting,